Hi, and welcome to another session in our AutoCAD training tutorials. In this lesson, we're going to have a little look at dimensions and creating dimension styles, leader styles, and text styles, just doing a fairly basic dimension drawing. So let's get into it. Okay, so I just thought I'd just run through this exercise to the Dim 2. You notice as well I'm using AutoCAD 2022 just to show you what this front screen's like. Close everything else and open up dimensions. Open up Dim 2. So I'm going to click in here and open up here. You've still got the same old open options here and here. And AutoCAD, but you've got this option here, which allows you to open file sheet sets and more example drawings and so on. So I open up that. And just make sure you see DWT file. So just make sure you've got DWG here, otherwise you won't find your drawing file. And as I said, just create a quick link to your folder here by just navigating to the folder. So you can navigate to the folder this way here, so wherever you store your course files and that, so navigate to them. And if you right click there, you can add the current folder. So whatever the folder is in here, it will add that as a little shortcut, and then you can just drag it and move it up and down so you can easily access it. And that, I'm going to just delete that so you can remove it there if you don't want it there on that. So I don't really need it. So working files are here, and here it is. And this is the one I'm looking for, Dim 2. So I'm going to open up that, and that gives me this. Okay, so now we're going to set up a few dimension styles and text styles and so on that. So first thing it asks you actually to do is just do a save as. So probably that's the best thing to do when you come into any drawing. So do a quick save as. And if I go to here and just go to week 3, and I'll just save that as Dim 2. So you don't have to worry about the .dwg bit. You can just type over and it'll automatically throw in the .dwg, and I'm going to save it in there. So we're working on that, and you still have the original to kind of fall back on should you need to go and do this again. So the first thing I'm asked to do is create a new text style. So I'm going to pop up here, and in here we got our text style manager. So in here, and I'm going to create a new text style, and we're going to call this one Dims 2. So Dims 2, and the font is going to be Arial. Just type in A and it'll jump to the A's, and there's Arial there. And I'll leave this set at 0, so we get a variable height text. Leave that set at 0. As I said during the course here, we'll leave that set at 0. Makes good sense to kind of set the height, to be honest, when you're creating a template and that. So you've got all your heights set, so you're not having to enter them every time, and you've got a sort of standard heights that you're going to use. But for us here, we leave it at 0, so we get variable height text on that. So I'm going to set that to current and apply that, first, and close, and that's okay. So next we're going to create a new multi-leader style. So pop it up here, and we're going to create a little multi-leader style. Again, remember what I said about them, they're all sort of set as sort of imperial sizes. So we're going to create another new one, and this one's going to be called Dims 2 as well. So keep it the same, so on that. And take them in turn. So you can see the arrowhead size, so we're going to leave that at, say, 3. And then you can leave the break size, that's fine for now. I'll get into sort of more detail on all the rest of this kind of stuff at a later stage, because we're still doing fairly basic stuff, so we'll leave that for now. And then the landing settings, so we'll change that to, say, 1 mil on that. And then the content, so our text style is going to be Dims 2. And we're okay with that. The text height then, we'll make it the same as everything else, so 3 mil high. And then the landing gap, we'll maybe make that 1 as well on that. And I'm going to click OK on that. And just make sure then you set current on that. So close that as well. So when you go in there, you see dims and leaders are set current to those. Next thing, we're going to look at the dimension style. So pop it in here. And we change pretty much the same as we did for the first exercise. Just grab this box on screen here. So again, do it in sequence, kind of take them at the start, take them in sequence. And don't stress too much about what dimension lines and extension lines are all about for now. Just let's stick to the basics. So if we do the same as the first one, we'll set our baseline spacing to 8. Extend beyond dimension line, so again, that little bit there. It's kind of okay at 1.25. You know, if you're picky, I kind of change that to 1. Offset from origin, I might change that to 4. I know the first drawing we did, dim 1, was set to 2, but I might kind of change it to that. You can get into all sort of fancy things like setting colors in this, if you like to try that yourself, kind of for now. So you can kind of change kind of the line type and the colors and all that. But we'll leave well enough alone now. Symbols and arrows. So arrowhead size, keep them all the same, 3. So we'll change that to 3. And the dimension mark, we'll kind of change that to 1 as well on that. As I told you, I mean, I do like the new center mark, but this kind of comes in handy now and again, but I think we'll probably end up kind of using the new center mark more than this. And then come along to text then, so come in here and dims. And remember, if you forgot to set your dims, your text style, you can always kind of come here and create your dimension style without leaving this dimension style manager. So if you forgot that, you can kind of come in here at that stage. We leave text color and fill color alone. We'll enter in a height of 3 mil for our text height, and everything else is okay. Offset from dimension line, I suppose we could kind of make that 1.5 just to push it away a little bit from the dimension line. Fits okay, but I always tend to, this one here is one I change. If there isn't enough room to place both text and arrows inside the extension line, I tend to move both the text and arrows outside on that, and I just make sure to draw a dim line between extension line is kind of selected. But I'll leave it for now, but that's what I tend to kind of do on that. Next one then, primary units. So if you look at our dim 2 exercise, it's got 2 decimal places and there's no 0 suppression, so we leave that one as 2 decimal places. And in here, we'll set that to a period. And I'm going to uncheck the 0 trailing suppression on that, so we get our 2 decimal places all the time. Okay, and don't worry about alternate units and tolerances for now. So click OK on that and close on that. Now we can pop around and do our dimensions. So you've got to take it sort of from left, and I'll work away around on that. So popping up here and making sure you've got linear selected. You'll see it in there. So if it's available in there, you don't have to click on that little arrow. Remember I said that. So linear dimension. So again, the really important thing on this is that you make sure you snap to the correct location. So where your intended location for this dimension is. So the end point of that line to say the end point of that line. So make sure that's correct. That's really important on that. Just not just snapping to any point. So click on that. And then I'm going to just do a little follow. So again, if you turn on this menu bar, you do have those dimensions up here. So we can look at continue on that and select it there. I do kind of recommend that you just go straight across to annotate and get used to using this one now. And if you like, you can pin that out when you're doing dimensions in case you need anything here. But look, we've got continue and baseline here. So I kind of recommend you kind of jump straight to that, even though the book kind of gears you towards the home tab starting out. But there's no harm in kind of going to here fairly quickly. So if I do continue, look, you see, because I've done that one, and it's going to continue on and line that up nice and neat for me, and I can right click and enter in that, and it places my dimension in there nicely. The next one is down here, and it's actually coming in this direction, so it's coming from this corner over. So if you look at the dimensions at the bottom of your exercise. So again, I use linear dimension, and from there, and I'm going to pick the end point of that as opposed to the center. If I pick the center, I'll show you what happens there on that. It kind of runs across that line. Actually, because I had 4 in there, it kind of doesn't really affect that line too much. But if you don't have a good gap there, you'll actually wipe that out. So because I'd set it to 4, kind of it's contradicted me on that. But I would actually kind of on this, because you place them, when you place those center marks, it's important you place them accurately as well, any center marks or anything like that, because we're going to use them as dimension markers as well. So if I select the linear dimension again, I normally pick the end point of that and do that. So it gives me that, and it's much neater than this extension line driving across that if you haven't got the right distance in. You can see the distance I have there is 4. It wasn't kind of giving me much of an issue. It was just crossing that line there. The only issue with that would be when it comes to line weights. So when you go to actually print out your drawing, that if that line weight is different to this, then you'll have a sort of a darker sort of line there than the rest of them. So little things like that kind of just make your drawings that a little bit neater. So there's that. Next, I want to use the baseline this time. So because we've selected that baseline, it's going to just let me pick here. So again, make sure you pick the endpoint and here on the endpoint of that. Remember what I said about if you're working on an older version or anything like that, you can see, look, it's allowing me to snap to this. It won't let me snap to the endpoint. Older versions used to let you snap there, which was a bit of a pain because sometimes if you were out at that level and you weren't paying attention or you didn't have a big enough gap there, you could easily click to the wrong thing. So they've kind of slightly fixed that, but I see it's still snapping to the midpoint of that. So just be careful on that. So click to the endpoint of that and right click to finish on that. And we've got those 3 dimensions. Next I'm going to move up the side. So I'm going to do another linear dimension here. So just do all the nice handy ones first. So up here, position that there. And then we're going to do an align dimension. So I might throw in this one next. So yeah. And again, zoom in to make life easy for yourself. So coming in here, align dimension. So from there, this time I do have to pick the center point of this. So I hold down Control or Shift and right click. I just snap to the center of that. And that'll be my first one. We kind of need to, for this align dimension, I told you before, why that is, because if I just kind of pick the end point of that, look, you get that sort of dimension. So it's important you pick the first one at the center point of that. So then when I do my continue dimension, now I can actually just pick the end point of that and that, because it's going to follow the line of that first dimension that we've placed down there. So it's going to follow that, if you like, in line with that 30 dimension coming along there. So that's okay for that one. But the first one, you need to actually pick the center of that. Do another align dimension up here, so I can pick on that and the align dimension there. So throw that in. And an angular dimension, so come down here and angular dimensions on that. And I can pick that dimension there. And then my linear dimension is here. And we pop that in there. You notice the dimension is this side. On your example, it's this side. There's 2 things you can do. You could actually pick the linear dimension and go in that direction. And it'll be there. So if you know where you want to place it, you can actually go in the opposite direction. Or you can actually just left click on it and over there. So I can move with dim line and I can place it over this side. So left click on it and then you can just hover over and you see those little, allow you to move text only, move with leader, move dim line and so on. So you can kind of place that side should you wish to move it at that stage. One thing I didn't actually say during the session today was the keyboard shortcuts. Which is surprising because I'm a big fan of keyboard shortcuts. So the keyboard shortcuts for dimensions are quite easy to kind of pick up. So a linear dimension is DLI. So the first 2 letters of most of them kind of get you away. So if I type in DLI, so DLI, you see I get dim linear. So it's, I mean, to put in a linear dimension. So if I want to pop in a linear dimension, it'll let me do a linear dimension. DAL is aligned. So you can see it's like D for dim, and then the first 2 letters of whatever it is you're looking for. DRA is radius. So I'll maybe just do the angular one again. So DAN is angular, so DAN is dimension angular. So I can kind of pick that line and place that in. So. And the radius will be, again, I don't really mind which way you do it. I do think keyboard shortcuts are best, but you got the radius here, so DRA is going to be radius. So DRA will be your keyboard shortcut for radius. And we can pop that in there. And DDI is dim diameter. And it's actually down this side. So we place it down there on that. Okay, so again, just quite handy to kind of pick them up. So DLI, AL, AN, so AR, ADI, GO, and so on, OR. So you can kind of quickly pick up the keyboard shortcuts for that. So just a D and then the first two letters of whatever it is you're looking for. And you've got your keyboard shortcuts for that. So last thing I kind of think I need to do on this is my little leader. So over here we've got multi-leader. So I've got sort of dims to set. So just like back in the home tab, you've got sort of leaders here and you've got them here as well. So that's where if you're in the home tab, you're looking for them. So this little multi-leader here. But again, as I said, try and get used to the annotate tab because that's where we'll eventually be pointing you to anyway. So multi-leader, you've got your dims to set as the current style. So multi-leader and coming in here. And as I said, this is the only time I really use the nearest. So hold down Shift or Control and right click and you've got nearest there. And we're going to pick on the nearest point to that circle. I'm going to just throw it up there and we pop in our text. So it's 3 holes and do a lowercase x for the by, and then %C gives you diameter, or as I said, you've got the diameter options up there and all that if you forget that, and 12, and just close the editor, and we've got that, and that's that little exercise complete at that. I think just do a quick check around. So if you're doing this yourself as well, so just have a quick check around and just tick off each of the dimensions and make sure you've got everything kind of done. So quick check, and I think I have everything done, and then just do a final save then on that. You might kind of save as you go along. I'm kind of fairly confident at this stage, but that AutoCAD doesn't crash as much as it used to. But you might kind of do a quick save every now and again as you go. Okay, so that's that.